freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, these are under threat in India right now under a Hindu nationalist government.
Thank you for joining the First Amendment Museum again for the next entry of our one-on-one series. Today, I'm joined by our special guest, Nikhil Mandalaparthy, who is going to be talking about his organization, Hindus for Human Rights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maxwell, for inviting me to this series. My name is Nikhil, and I'm the Advocacy Director with Hindus for Human Rights. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I work on issues around human rights, civil rights, and religious pluralism in South Asia and North America.
Why do you think the First Amendment is important?
The First Amendment and its freedoms resonates a lot with our own values, as a faith-based organization. One of the religious leaders that we look up to at Hindus for Human Rights, Swami Agnivesh, was one of the few Hindu leaders to speak out against religious nationalism and caste. One of his core messages was to always ensure the freedom to doubt, the freedom to debate, and also, if necessary, the freedom to dissent. And so I see these as very much in alignment with our fundamental freedoms from the First Amendment.
What is the purpose and goal of Hindus for Human Rights?
Hindus for Human Rights is a 2-year-old nonprofit human rights advocacy organization. The core of our mission is to advocate for pluralism, civil rights, and human rights in South Asia and in North America. And doing so sort of motivated and rooted in the values of our faith, which are peace, justice, and truth. And so we provide a Hindu voice of resistance against caste and caste-based discrimination, against Hindu nationalism, violence against minorities, racism, Islamophobia, all forms of bigotry and hate. And so our vision is working towards a world where there's peace, among all people, and the planet also is honored and protected.
So why do you think average Americans should care about the work that Hindus for Human Rights does?
And so most Americans know something about yoga and Bollywood and these different aspects of South Asian cultures, which have become very global. And most Americans also know something about religious nationalism, especially seeing what's happened in this country, in the US, over the last few years. Hindu nationalism has been ravaging India's pluralistic secular democracy. This same country is being threatened by really violent extremist ideas of who belongs, who is a true Indian, and all of this is being decided through a lens of hard extremist religious nationalism. And so many of the freedoms that we in the US hold dear, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, these are under threat in India right now under a Hindu nationalist government. This ideology of Hindu nationalism isn't just threatening Indian democracy, but also here in the US. We know that in January 6th, at the insurrection at the US Capitol, Hindu nationalists were present along with right-wing Christian nationalists.
So what are some of the challenges Hindus for Human Rights faces?
I think one of the major challenges that we face is very much connected to actually the First Amendment. We're the only Hindu organization in the US that speaks out against Hindu nationalism, against caste, against Islamophobia. And we've received a lot of backlash from some of the more mainstream Hindu organizations here in this country. And so we see that here in the United States, speaking out on these issues is very tense and very contested, and we believe that it's important to exercise our freedom of speech to raise these important issues that are being threatened in India as well as in the United States.
So how do you use your First Amendment freedoms in your everyday life?
As a religious minority working for a Hindu organization, I think freedom of religion is kind of essential for us to do our work. And so we believe in religious freedom as a really fundamental value for any pluralistic, diverse society. And also freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition the government. As an advocacy organization, these are freedoms that we're engaging every single day through petitions and rallies and protests and holding our government elected officials accountable. And as I mentioned, these same freedoms are very much under threat in India, where the Indian Constitution also guarantees freedom of speech and religion and assembly and all of that. But just as, in India and in any other country across the world, there's this rise in right-wing authoritarian movements which are challenging these fundamental freedoms. And so having the freedoms that we have in the US, we believe it's our responsibility to speak up as much as we can and raise our voice when those in other countries may not be able to do as much. So thank you again for this opportunity to share a little bit about our work, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.